mic's on. Push the button. Good evening. Welcome to the May 27th Planning and Zoning regular meeting for this month. May I have a roll call vote, please? I mean, a roll call.
Daryl here.
Melissa here.
Lynn here.
Amanda here.
Michael here.
Jeff here.
Please rise.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, has everybody read tonight's agenda? Yes. Do we have anything that we're adding or changing in this? What's that? May I have a approval for our regular agenda this evening? Motion?
Make approval. I approve tonight's agenda for May 27th, 2026.
And who seconded? Motion by Amanda, second by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval of the minutes of May 13th. Anybody have anything? No? No?
I have a,
You have one? Okay,
it's just a minor thing.
it's okay.
On the second page of the minutes, down near the bottom, we're under discussion, direction items. Get down there after Michael B, then there's Daryl W. In the Daryl W part, the last line, it says, he also pointed out that potential need for screening with fire retardant materials, the stacked firewood that people have. Shouldn't that possibly be read screening with the fire retardant materials with stacked firewood? Just with rather than the.
Okay.
And where is that?
The last line in.
Oh, on that page. I was looking at the second page. Okay, gotcha. So with that amendment, may I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from May 13th, 2026.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Amanda, second by Daryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Declaration of conflicts of interest. Anybody have any time? None?
None.
Public comment? Is there anybody who would like to speak tonight on something that is not on tonight's agenda? We have no one in the room. Madison, do we have anybody on Zoom? No. Therefore, we will close public comment. Special presentations. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes. Invited presentations are limited to 10 minutes if prior arrangements are made with the town clerk.
Just a heads up, this is gonna be way longer than 10 minutes.
Madison says it's okay, everyone.
No, this is on the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Yes, so the special presentation.
Well, yeah, I guess technically.
Regional Housing Authority presentation. Presented by Jessica Copeland, planning intern.
Hi, everyone. I think I've met most of you by now, but my name is Jessica Copeland and I'm an intern here with the town of Minturn. And we're here today to have an introductory conversation about participating in a multi-jurisdictional regional housing authority. And Madison, if you could please go to the next slide. So really quickly, here's a presentation outline of what we'll be covering tonight. So first off, we'll do a brief introduction for what a regional housing authority is. Next, we'll cover a bit of Minturn's historic identity and then review the most recent data from the housing needs analysis. After that, we will take a moment to digest what we have learned before moving on to talking about steps we've taken so far. Finally, we'll wrap up with an activity exploring the different opportunities available to the town if we decide to participate in the regional housing authority. So, what is a regional housing authority? This program is spearheaded by Avon and Eagle County in an effort for the Valley to all get on the same page with regard to making housing more affordable for locals and ideally leverage the local dollars going into this to apply for larger state and federal grants. I want to take a moment and reiterate a point I made in the memo that we are not yet committed to joining this entity, nor have final decisions been made about what functions it will serve. We're here tonight to think about the many available tools that we could use and how those tools might best serve Minturn in furthering the housing goals we've established in our 2019 Housing Action Plan and 2023 Community Plan. After we have this discussion, and then we'll also bring this presentation to council, we will bring back what people have said to those working on the Regional Housing Authority and see if we like what they come back with. So basically, we're giving them input on how we'd like them to structure it. So as for the Regional Housing Authority itself, this topic was brought to council a few months back, and it seemed folks were most interested in exploring a 90-10 hybrid pass-through model. So localities maintain 90% of funds collected for local programs and partnerships, and the remaining 10% funds the actual Regional Housing Authority. So I want you all to put funding on the side for now, because the point of this presentation is to get us to focus on how we can utilize the potentially available tools and really like analyze if it brings us closer to the Minturn we hope to see moving forward. So with that, the money we retain can do things like start a grant program to rehab historic homes in exchange for a deed restriction, or partner with something like Good Deeds Avon to buy down homes in return for deed restrictions. It seems like this process could get really expensive really fast, but when we partner with existing programs, we give them a portion of our funds and in return have access to the whole pot of money that is in that program. Furthermore, the 10% staying with the Regional Housing Authority helps with the administration and compliance side of things, which is essential for a town like us because we just don't have the people power to do everything all on our own. Next slide, please. As for history, I had a lot of fun making this and going through all the old photos of Minturn, just as a side note. And everyone in this room probably knows Minturn's history and the identity that has grown out of that. But I wanted to bring it up because it's important to stay true to our roots as we consider the whole context of what housing looks like in Minturn today. So throughout the timeline, starting when the Talamich family built the first house in Minturn, we see the town as self-reliant, industrious, and a working class community that's rooted in the railroad industry, farming, and the nearby Gilman mine. Over the decades, we have slowly transformed into a tourist-based resort economy with Vail and Beaver Creek opening next door and the previous industries that once kept our town running closing down. I also want to draw our attention to 1982. I thought it was really interesting that Minturn adopted a home rule government. And I talked to Gusty about this just passing on the street the other day, and I would love to chat more if anyone knows more about this. But yeah, my interpretation of this happening at this moment of time is that amidst the arrival of ski resorts, Minturn wanted to manage its own affairs and ultimately maintain its own identity despite increasing pressure of newcomers to the area. So keeping that in mind, we can go to the next slide. And this quote is from an elected official from the 2019 Housing Action Plan on the topic of staying true to Minturn's working class roots. And in it, the quote gives some context, but he means going back all the way to the homesteaders and miners who settled the area over 100 years ago. His words resonate with this idea of a home rule government and maintaining Minturn's identity amidst resort pressures that have only increased over time. It also points out that the ability for working people to live in town is key to maintaining our identity. Has everyone had time to read the quote that's up on the slide, or would you like me to read it? Thumbs up if you've read it. Great, thanks. Oh wait, Madison, can you go back to the last slide really quickly? So there's a lot of merit in this idea that Minturn is a community where people work and live, and one without the other does not align with our core identity. I also do want to point out that this quote mostly focuses on Minturn, but the regional context has changed a lot since the COVID pandemic and the rise of remote work. So while we're mainly here to discuss Minturn, the reality is that housing is an issue valley-wide for locals trying to live and work here. Okay, next, please. In terms of identity, I just gathered some core points that I've gotten from the 2023 community plan, attending RTAP workshops, and also just talking to longtime Minturn residents. And is there anything else you all would like to add to this slide? I got it. Cool. Okay. And this identity grows directly out of Minturn's early history as laborers who work hard, invest in one another, and create Minturn as a place where they can grow old and watch the next generation grow up. I love talking to folks about how they know their neighbors and they know their neighbors' kids and they know the people who lived there before. I think it's a really special thing that you don't find everywhere anymore. So as we move through this presentation, I want you all to keep in mind these aspects of our identity and also think about what you want to still be around in 50 years' time. Because we're about to look at some data, and this data comes from the housing needs analysis that was conducted around 2023 and published in 2025. And we're going to look at that so that we have a snapshot of what exactly is going on in our community, and then also look to it again when we are in the process of developing housing solutions. Next slide, please. All right, and this is an interactive portion. I am going to say the letter, and then you are going to raise your hands for what answer you think it is. Okay.
We've already got this with the answers.
Yeah, it has the answers in here.
Okay, well, next time I will hide the slide.
We all read our next.
Smart.
I know. Okay, so
I did good.
I did challenge myself.
Hey.
And
I do this.
I didn't look at because I read it on my phone and you had to scroll to get the answer. And so I'm like, okay, this is the answer. Yes, I'm right.
Is there one that answered?
No, I didn't see the answer.
I know, I'm teasing you. Because
Yeah.
you scrolled on the phone.
Yeah.
So I did also just sort of ask some other people around town if they knew the answers to these, and you would be surprised by how many people did not get all of them right. So it just shows that we don't know exactly what's going on.
Well, on the next one, 69%, Rod just stated that at a council meeting just a few years ago. So I heard it there. It wasn't that I just generally knew it.
That's fair. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't know these numbers either if somebody just asked me out of the blue, honestly. But we can keep it rolling. So next slide, please.
The only question I had is like on slide 17 with the 49% where you said the data means. Can you elaborate when you say that it means that Minturn is vulnerability to redevelopment?
Yeah,
Hasn't necessarily been. I think like just like elaborate what you think of there.
so when we're talking about what the data means, it's sort of how it could be interpreted either by me or somebody else. And a lot of this presentation comes from collaboration with other people in the office about what this data could mean. And typically when you're looking at houses built pre-1970, it takes a lot of money if they haven't been well maintained in order to rehab them to get back to the point of livability. So that might mean that they have asbestos in them or use lead paint. Or it could be things like my generation is super concerned with environmental sustainability. So they might not be as energy efficient as they could be. They might need a new roof or new insulation, that sort of thing. And so with predominantly, I'm thinking of second homeowners who might want to come to Minturn and build a house. Instead of putting all this money into rehabilitating a pre-1970 home, they probably want the new glittering mountain lodge outside of Vale and Beaver Creek. So does that answer your question?
No, it was exactly better.
Okay, cool. And questions are welcome, but just for the sake of time and moving through the presentation, I will ask you guys questions at certain points if you have any questions. And then if we could hold other ones till the end, that would be great. But I do appreciate the question because I want it to be clear. So just back to this really quickly, I also do want to note that in presenting this data, I'm not pointing it out in an effort to say that we should tear it down. I really am saying the opposite. I'm saying that 49% of our homes that's like hard data backing up what many Minturn visitors say, which is we have authentic small town mountain charm. However, yeah, I already went through what the data means, that it's vulnerable to redevelopment. So yeah, Ultimately, in a free market, we can't tell people what to do or not do with their home. However, we can explore opportunities for preservation that also potentially keeps these homes affordable for people who live and work in the valley. Next slide, please. Okay, you guys know the answer. All right, so year-round occupancy. This was a really surprising one for me. It decreased from 80% year-round to 69% over the course of 12 years, which leads us to believe that more units are either vacant, short-term rental, or seasonally occupied second homes. And when we see something like this, the first question is, for me, is why is this happening? So does anyone have any ideas about why our year-round occupancy might be decreasing?
I have an idea. Between 2010 and 2015, I know a lot of the people, basically my age, were getting tired of shoveling, had properties in Grand Junction and what have you. And so they just they figured they could get their retirement out of the home and leave. Now, who bought the home, I couldn't tell you.
And that's where I would say that we purchased our home in 2015. And at the same time, there were like 3 other properties on our street, and all of them went to second homeowners. So it was because it was the cheapest place to buy, which is why we bought ours, but it was the cheapest place to buy in this valley. So Minturn at the time in 2015 was cheaper than Singletree, Homestead, any place in Eaglevale, and even actually more reasonable than places in Eagle.
I'm just taking notes on what you
No,
guys
I love it. I love it. But that is like, I mean, because we purchased smack dab in the middle of these years.
Awesome. That is really great context. Thank you all both.
Yeah. Price per square foot.
Price per square foot.
We're one of the
Yes.
cheapest in the valley.
You will see shortly that has changed a lot. So if we could go to the next slide. I don't have the lived experience context of what was happening during that time period. So I actually looked to the median income and income range from 2010 to 2022 to see if I could sort of parse something out. And what I discovered was that starting in 2010, the median income of $75K was fairly representative of the population, with a couple outliers in the $200K plus range. And then moving on to 2015, the median income dropped due to an overall downward shift. And that was mostly coming from a decrease in the middle income area of 50 to 150K and a sharp increase in households making less than 50,000. So at first glance, if you're just looking at the median household income, you might think that the town as a whole recovered and started doing better 2015 to 2022 with a 62% increase in median income. But what actually happened, if you look at the breakdown on the right, you can see that Minturn more likely transformed. So instead of the households that had small business workers, teachers, service workers jumping up 1 to 2 income brackets, it's more likely that those folks sold their property and moved elsewhere. This combined with the decrease in year-round occupancy we observed over the same period, we can see that Minturn is transforming from a largely year-round middle-income community to a wealthier, less permanently occupied one. Next slide, please. Yeah. The median sale price of a home in Minturn in 2023 was $1.35 million. So these charts right here are for homes and rentals in non-resort areas. If you all have read the housing needs analysis, it defines non-resort areas as those areas that are more local, quote unquote, and are not made for second homeowners or short-term rentals. And so these charts are excluding areas like Beaver Creek, Bachelor's Gulch, Arrowhead to get a picture of what the locals market looks like. So if you guys remember from the last slide, median income went up by about 60%, 2015 to 2022. However, housing prices skyrocketed by 125% during that same period. So this essentially leaves us with home prices that are rising 2 times faster than median income in Minturn. home prices probably went up so fast because a new price floor was set around 2015 to 2022 era. And then that plus the growth of remote work. So property right outside of Vale and Beaver Creek was becoming that much more valuable. And then if we turn our attention to the graph on the right, we can see that rent increased nearly 90% 2015 to 2022. So the result of these two combined things is that households who stay in Minturn in the short term must use up any potential income gains on rent. And then this combined with the skyrocketing home values effectively locks out middle income earners long term from home ownership in Minturn. Do we have any questions?
I have one really tangential like question. So you talk a lot about remote workers. I'm a remote worker, have been since 2007. There is a huge push for return to office, RTO, across a lot of our sectors, financial, oil and gas, everyone's doing RTO. How do you think that's going to impact some of these studies? Or is that too premature to tell? Because I mean, like in the financial industry, it's 100% RTO coming back.
Interesting.
To RTO. Except for me. I got approval.
Nice. You know, I'm not super familiar with how that push for RTO will influence this data.
And even Google's doing it, like so everybody like Google has it. You saw everything with
I can tell you that.
Facebook, Amazon. I mean, all of them are. We're all doing it.
I can tell you that a lot of it is driven by the cities and the large amount of commercial office space and workspace that is sitting vacant since COVID. That they allowed that to sort of, they couldn't do anything about that at the time. Now all those spaces are sucking wind with no one working in them. And so all those businesses that own millions of square feet of office space would rather have their people come back and use them versus sell them. That's one thing driving that. We don't necessarily have that as much here because we don't necessarily have a ton of commercial office space that might be sitting vacant like a city does.
But do we think that all the employees that moved here for remote working, because of the RTO, you're going to have to go back? That we're going to see kind of that shift, that pendulum shift, where they're going to be offloading properties because you can't afford those.
Well, some people can.
Well, some people, but like most people, like I mean, do you know what I mean? Like it's going to shift a little bit. That's what
the point here is that this just went like this.
Yeah.
The new bar, and it rarely goes down.
Right.
Just because a handful or maybe a couple handfuls of people have to move back to the city to be in an office. That property value's been set, right? And a lot of that happened just anecdotally post-pandemic. We saw the influx of folks that are professionals that are moving from places like San Francisco or New York or wherever that did not want to be in a city anymore, had the income to basically overpay for properties here, elsewhere, everywhere, and that reset the bar.
And there was a massive shift in wealth that also I feel like outweighs those people that are going to have to go back to work. There's enough people that like quadrupled their whatever their wealth, and they can suck up that little extra bit, and like to his point, pay a lot more.
Yeah.
And so I don't see it retracting at all. Unfortunately.
That's a quick question. Do we know, it feels like the number of rental properties in Minturn has plummeted. Is that true?
Long term, not
Long-term.
short term.
Yeah, not
That's
short-
what?
long-term rentals, because this huge jump from 2010 to 2022, how much of that is because there are no places to rent in Minturn?
I don't remember the exact, there's definitely a chart about it in the housing needs analysis. And I could look it up after this and get back
I'm
to
just
you.
sort of curious, because I think Minturn is also suddenly, not suddenly, but in the last decade, we're more viable as a short-term rental.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it'd be a nice information to know. what is short-term and how much is short-term and how much is long-term?
Yeah. I can get that information tomorrow and send it out to y'all.
Our short-term
And
license.
that works with the community too.
They're capped.
Long-term means you know your neighbor.
Yes.
We have a
Correct.
30 and we have a cap.
Right.
Yeah.
I just assumed it was maxed.
I think either DOLA, the state agency, or Northwest Cog did a study, I think in 2022, because there was a lot of, not fear, but a lot of concern about the impact of short-term rentals pushing out the long-term rentals. And I think what they found throughout the entire Central Rockies was that that wasn't exactly the case. There wasn't this spike in short-term rentals and pushing out all the long-term. I think there was people that were selling their homes and moving to Grand Junction, and if they had a lock off, it was no longer a lock off. Or people that bought the house and pushed out the renters that were in it because they needed a place for permanent residence. I think that had more to do with it, but we can certainly try to backtrack and find those
I
numbers.
think other people also realized the work that short-term rentals involved, and if they were trying to do it themselves, they chose not to. It was easier to go back to long-term.
Yeah, I think there was also, if we remember back in post-pandemic, we were concerned about that, and from the standpoint of how many people are gonna make the investment, wait the 2 years, and then see, and now I think we would have seen it by now, and we haven't necessarily, so that's theoretically a good thing.
The 2-year ownership is definitely a deterrent. I get so many people who are just like, well, but I want to buy this as an investment property. I was just like, well, tough. Our code doesn't allow you to do that. You have to wait 2 years
Right.
or fall under these other exceptions within the short-term rental code.
Make a commercial space that you could invest in and reduce rent on it.
Right.
Yeah, and so I think we would have seen that in 2024, 2025, and certainly this year, we're not.
No, we're not.
And I sort of have, it's probably in here as well, but you have all the, the values of the houses and, the prices of the rent, and then the rent increases, and then, on specific topics, sale price and rent by location, as the value of the home goes up, the cost of the properties go up, which in hand makes cost of the rents go up,
Yeah.
probably.
Your taxes go up, your insurance goes up.
If we can, blood pressure goes up for sure. So we just have one more slide about data. If we could turn to it. Does everyone here know what an affordability gap is?
You can explain it.
Okay. So an affordability gap is the difference between an attainable home price for a community's median income and what the home actually costs. So Minturn has the second highest affordability gap in Eagle County, excluding resort areas. And this is second highest following Edwards. And Edwards does include Cordillera area, but it doesn't include Arrowhead. So there's some discrepancy there with the non-resort areas.
Are you even higher than Vail?
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
You're
So here we have the affordable home price for a 2-income household in Eagle Counties, based on Eagle County's area median income. And the data is telling us that Minturn has the second highest affordability gap between the median income and the median home price countywide behind Edwards. So a 2-person household must make nearly 300% of the area median income, which is roughly $297,000 a year in order to afford a home in Minturn. For a family closer to 100% of the area median income, making about $103,000 in 2022, an affordable home is closer to $400,000. This means that there is approximately a $950,000 gap between what is attainable and what a home actually costs. Yes, Lynn.
Earlier you were saying per household. During this, you just said a person would have to make $297. So have we gone to an individual having to make that, or the household too?
Sorry, a 2-person household.
Okay.
Yes.
So, like, when we talk about Avon and Vail, obviously their numbers are lower. Is that because those communities dilute their, like, numbers with some of the more multifamily housing that they have, and Minturn doesn't have that same type of property. So when you're talking about Vail 2023, you have middle, so at that point, no, Timber Ridge would have been already online, but not the new Timber Ridge Village, but those aren't for sale, but the ones that replaced Children's Garden would have been for sale. Those would have come on line, as well as Chamonix. And like, is there a dilution? Like, is it because Minturn doesn't have those tight multifamily, and that's why these are primarily single family, some duplexes, but primarily single family? That's what is that the dilution here that we're looking at as numbers?
Scott, you started. Oh, I haven't thought about it that way, but yeah, that is probably a little bit of what is going on for sure. And
I would say like,
And
yeah,
income.
when you throw in
I mean, I'd love to see this on like
Right.
by property type, like townhouse.
so the housing needs analysis does have that.
Okay.
It's a whole 70-80 page document, but that is in there by property type.
you throw a billionaire into the mix, it's going to skew the whole thing, and you might as well throw it away.
As well as what Jeff said and Amanda said, I also think that depending on how the math's done, that the size of the population and the amount of houses they have could skew your numbers as to how you come up with affordability. Because we're such a small town, you can count on our affordability, but Vail that has, say, we'll just throw a number out there, 25,000 or 30,000 residents.
They do not.
No, but they do.
Or whatever, it's more than we have by at least 100-fold.
45,000.
4,000 to 5,000.
Yes, 4,800 people in Vail. They do not have 25,000 people.
But there's a couple whales.
But they have
in there.
2,200 short-term rentals and 26.
And also, sorry,
Yeah.
we're talking about, when we talk about median income, it's the median. So the top and the bottom will cancel each other out. So it's not like an average and it's being heavily skewed. It just seemed like there might have been some confusion there. I know that you all know that, but just wanted to say that. Okay, and then, yeah, so ultimately, all the trends that we've talked about combined with a totally free housing market leads us to the conclusion that this gap that we see will most likely only get wider, and Minturn will become increasingly less economically diverse, less locally employed, and it'll be more difficult to stay here generation after generation. So next up, I just want us to sit and consider, what about the current data worries or surprises you? And what aspects of Minturn's identity do we want to carry into the future? And if anyone, I am curious to hear if anyone has any thoughts really quickly. So if anyone has anything they'd like to share about that.
Sharon, what? I'm sorry.
Sharing just if there was anything about the data that worries or surprises you, and also what aspects of Minturn's identity do we want to carry into the future?
Sure.
I mean, that, what you just said is exactly the problem, which is to have a community that's built on the foundation of this is built on the fact that people, more than half the people live and work here. And historically, and then the other side of it is the multi-generational side. When you take all of that away, because my kids can't afford to live here. I have 4 children. One just graduated from college. He can't afford a place here. So if he's not living in my house, which he's not hopefully going to do, he can't. So there's that generation's done. His kids' generations are done. So my grandchildren can't live here.
But then when we die, if they can get 2.2 million.
Sure.
they're still-
So again, unless there's some pass down of generational wealth from the people that are remaining, and say, here, I'll leave my house to my 4 kids to fight over, and they can all have their bedrooms back. You know, I don't.
Let's have a planning session right now. You need to deed restrict it ahead of time, and then they can rent it long term.
Right.
We're good.
So,
There we go.
you know, that the data doesn't surprise me because I already I'm pretty aware of where that data sits, but. What aspects of Minturn's identity would I want to carry forward? Well, those are the aspects and the only aspects that I want to carry forward, because without them, it has no soul.
I'm gonna read this. You may not like it, but that's okay. Here are my concerns.
Oh, wait, Lynn, could
We
we,
have this later.
can we wait till the end of the presentation to read
I
that?
thought you were looking for that.
Okay,
See, some of the things Jeff just brought up are in here. That's why. That's okay.
okay, sorry. I do want to hear it though, because all feedback is good feedback. So we're trying to come to solutions together. So everything is valuable.
So the thing that worries me is like the to Jeff's point, like all of the families we've lost. So like I get my hair cut by Sandoval. She cuts my hair every 6 weeks. She grew up here and she doesn't live here anymore. And it would be really great when you put some of these all these tools and how we work those tools for, I mean, you talk about like Daughters of the Republic, get this, like you know, if we could do something like Minturn, like you were original Minturn family, like you have this, like how do we bring these families, long-term locals back in? Yeah, like how do you bring them back in? Because we excluded some of these that were the backbones of this, not only Minturn, but the Valley. And how do we bring them back in?
I love that. And that is exactly how we are going to culminate this exercise and then we're also going to try and figure out like what strategies could we use that might be available through a regional housing authority that we don't currently have the funds or staffing capacity for. How can we do that? Because if that is what is important for the town, making sure that the people who have been the backbone for it for so long are able to continue working and living here, and so that people's children could potentially try and come back and live here, how are we going to make that happen? And right now we're in the idea stage, so there's nothing too big or too small, and all of these concerns are so important, or not even concerns, but all of these considerations, I should say, are really important to bring in to this discussion. So thank you guys. And Lynn, I'm sorry I didn't let you read your
I
letter.
was gonna say the same thing she said. She just did it a different way. Here are my concerns. Our priority is to keep Minturn a local and a family town, regular people. This program addresses a lot of new homeowners only. Currently, homes are selling for, as you say, 1,350,000 medium and up, according to this presentation. These sales increase the appraisal value of current homes, which then increases the taxes owed on them. Mine is an example, because Hasley's house sold for $1.9 million. The house next door for $2.4 million. The one across the street sold for $2.1 million. Last year, my taxes went up 90%. That's what the increase in homes are doing to the local long-term residents. It does not make this any easier for current long-term residents to remain here, especially senior citizens who came from families who started the town of Minturn and now have children of their own and grandchildren who want to continue living here. We need to be more concerned with what we can do to help them remain and not keep increasing their costs. I don't know how we do that, but if we keep allowing home costs to go up like that, it just passes on to them. They are just as valuable to our community as new families with higher incomes. Instead of putting additional cost, like increasing our taxes so that we can put it to something like this housing thing, our additional costs on current residents, the cost should go to the large developers. And if they want to offer incentives to the people who are buying, to them to come up with them, not to the current people that live here. It's really hard to separate saving the old people by allowing the increases and everything happening. How do you save them? That's where I'd like to see this housing plan think about some thoughts. How do we do that? Because in here it mentions something about raising taxes. And since mine went up 90% a year ago, what are we talking about again? And what about the people on fixed incomes? And I do know people in this town, Jeff, whose children will take over their parents' house and try to survive here. You know, because the house